Hi everyone. So I've talked about Operation Timber Sycamore before, um, which is the CIA program in Syria that the mainstream media never talk about, even though this is from Wikipedia, so it's freely available. Timber Sycamore was a classified weapons supply and training program run by the United States CIA and supported by Arab intelligence services such as the Security Service in Saudi Arabia. Launched in 2012 and 2013, it supplied money, weaponry and training to rebel forces fighting Syrian President Bashar al-Assad in the Syrian civil war. When they say rebel forces there, they actually mean jihadists. We are arming, training and giving them weapons and money and supporting jihadists, which is wonderful in Syria. It was an attempted coup attempt. Now, this is something that they don't talk about on the mainstream media whenever they're talking about Syria. I'm sure Brian Williams won't mention it when he's orgasming over Leonard Cohen or whatever it was. But it does look like it's failed, because this is the latest thing in the AP. United States ends Syria stabilisation funding, cites more allied cash. I always find it funny when they call it stabilisation funding. I always find that hilarious. It's very Orwellian. So I'll read this article for you because, you know, it'll outline exactly why they've decided to pull the funding. The Trump administration is ending funding. This is the AP. The Trump administration is ending funding for Syria stabilisation projects as it moves to extricate the US from the conflict, citing increased contributions from anti-Islamic State coalition partners. The State Department said it had notified Congress on Friday that it would not spend some $230 million that had been planned for Syria programs and would instead shift that money to other areas. Most of that money, initially pledged by former Secretary of State Rex Tillerson in February, had been on hold and under review since he was fired in March. A small fraction of that amount was released in June. State Department spokeswoman Heather Nauert, horrible woman, said the cut, which was authorised by Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, horrible man, and does not include humanitarian aid funds, will be more than offset by an additional $300 million pledged by coalition partners, including $100 million that Saudi Arabia announced it was going to contribute late Thursday. Quote, as a result of key partner contributions by coalition members, Secretary Pompeo has authorised the Department of State to redirect approximately $230 million in stabilisation funds for Syria, which have been under review. Redirect it. I suppose Trump is going to try and redirect that to his wall and the southern border. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. Now, it said Pompeo's decision took into account the White House's desire to increase burden sharing with allies. The funds will be redirected, quote, to support other key foreign policy priorities. The wall, said Nauert, along with other officials rejected suggestions that the elimination of the funds showed diminishing US interest in Syria, which is basically what I'm reading into this as well. If Nauert says something, you can bet your bottom dollar that the opposite is true. Nauert, along with David Satterfield, the acting assistant Secretary of State for the Middle East, and Brett McGurk, the special envoy to the anti-IS coalition, told reporters on a conference call that the US would remain active in Syria until after the Islamic State has been defeated. Quote, the decision does not represent any lessening of US commitment to our strategic goals in Syria, said the lawyer Nauert. Still, the move was seen as a sign the administration is heeding the Trump demand to end US involvement in Syria and reduce its commitment there. This is astonishingly short-sighted, Democrats on the House Foreign Affairs Committee tweeted. They call it a lack of US leadership and said it was undercutting US interests in Syria and around the world. That's the Democrats on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. The Democrats on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, again, attacking Trump from the right. Attacking him because he's not overthrowing Syria. Is it any wonder they just lose and suck so bad? Don't stand for anything the people of their country want. In a bid to reassure its partners in the coalition against IS, as well as opponents of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, Pompeo appointed veteran diplomat troubleshooter James Jeffrey to be special envoy for Syria. Jeffrey, a former US ambassador to Turkey, Iraq and Albania, who served as a deputy national security advisor to President George W. Bush, will hold title of Special Representative for Syrian Engagement. Syrian Engagement. That's an unfortunate title. That really does make it sound hawkish. Jeffrey, who retired in 2012, also holds the highest rank in the US Foreign Service, Career Ambassador. He will lead US efforts to reinvigorate a long-stalled peace effort known as the Geneva Process between Assad, the opposition, and the other countries which equities in Syria, now it's said. Yet Friday's funding cut is the latest in Trump administration financial retreat from Syria. In May, the State Department announced it had had all funding for stabilisation programs in Syria's northwest. IS militants have been almost entirely eliminated from that region, which is controlled by a hodgepodge of other extremist groups and government forces. In June, the administration freed up a small portion, 6.6 million, of the 200 million that Tillerson had pledged in order to continue funding for the White Helmets, a Syrian civil defence organisation. No, they're not. They are not the Syrian Civil Defence Organisation. They're not. They're not a Syrian civil defence organisation. They're a group that goes over there and looks after terrorists. We've seen documentation of this. We've seen the videos. We've seen the pictures. We know what the White Helmets are now. The cat is out of the bag. Very few people believe they are who the governments of the Western world tell them they are. A Syrian Civil Defence Organisation, and the International Impartial and Independent Mechanism, a UN agency that is investigating war crimes committed during the conflict. Send them over to Yemen. There's plenty going on over there. Send the Impartial and Independent Mechanism, a UN agency. Send them over to Yemen. That left 193.4 million in limbo that would have had to be returned to the Treasury Department on September the 30th at the end of the budget year. Last month, the US helped to organise evacuation through Israel, surprise, surprise, of White Helmet workers from Syria's south across the safest border crossing on the entire planet between the Islamic State in Syria and the occupied Golan Heights. That's where they were evacuated from, where Assad's Russian-backed forces launched a new offensive despite a de-escalation agreement between Washington and Moscow, which was about a year old and which was out of date. And they said, don't go in there, it'll cause a hell of a lot of mess, don't go in there, don't get rid of these people, it'll cause a hell of a lot of mess. And they literally rolled over them in about 4 days. Now, it said Friday's decision would not affect life-saving, needs-based humanitarian assistance to vulnerable Syrians. It won't affect it at all because there is none. It won't affect that at all because there is none. Or US support for the White Helmets or the UN mechanism. So it does look like this coup attempt, this attempt to overthrow Assad, is done. For now. Remember, was it back in March? Trump said he wanted to end the conflict in Syria, and 3 days later there was that chemical attack in Douma. I'm going to be watching out for what happens here, because it looks like they are pulling out of Syria. It looks like he's got his way. But it's not forever. It's only a matter of time before they're going to try and get in there and overthrow him. They need their gas pipeline through there. They need their petrodollars. That's what it all comes down to. I've documented this on my channel very much. I wanted to read that article because I just wanted to put it on the record that, yeah, okay, they have said that they are going to end their support over in Syria. And the reason I wanted to document it is because I wanted to point to this video when they go back on their word and when the next coup attempt is attempted. Shouldn't be long now then. If you enjoyed this video, please click the bell down there and subscribe so you get a notification of next time I drop a video. Also, I can't do this without your help, so if you can afford it and you enjoy my videos, please support the channel by subscribing to my Patreon. Link is down there. You can do it for as little as $1 a month, and it really does help. If you can't afford it, that's fine. Please share my work and talk to other people about the issues that I bring up. Thanks very much for your support. Until next time, peace and take